John 3:5 Jesus answered, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. So this is another great example of how the wider context for a verse massively changes its meaning. If you just read this verse on its own, you would probably think it was saying that we have to be born again spiritually and we have to be baptized in water in order to enter into the kingdom of God. If we're talking about water baptism, most people would understand the order being the other way around. First of all, you get born again spiritually, and then you have a physical baptism. So why does Jesus put being born of water first? Because he's not talking about baptism, he's talking about being physically born. When a woman begins to go into labor, what do we say? Her water broke. And the reason this is so obvious is because of the conversation that is happening up until this point. Jesus says to this guy Nicodemus that people need to be born again in order to be saved. And Nicodemus is very confused and takes this entirely in terms of physical birth. He's asking, how can someone be born again? Do they have to climb back inside their mother's womb? And that's when Jesus says, no, they have to be born of water and of the Spirit. Meaning, no, we're not talking about when your mother's water broke and having to go through that whole process again. When I say you need to be born again, I'm talking about you needing to be born again spiritually. But it's just ridiculous to imagine Jesus would be talking about baptism here because of the wider context of the conversation. Like, they're talking about being born again with a mind towards the fact that we've all already been born once, physically. And Jesus is saying, like, hey, on top of that, you need to be born again. So it wouldn't make sense for him to then be like, yeah, I'm saying you need to be born 2 times. First, spiritually, and then of water baptism. Because it doesn't make sense to talk about being born again and then not even make reference to the initial sense in which we're all born. It's like if I said to someone, okay, you've already done X, but now you need to do Y again. And the person I'm talking to is confused and they're trying to understand what I'm saying. And I'm saying, yeah, I'm telling you, you need to do it again. You need to do Y and you need to do Z. But it's just ridiculous to imagine that Jesus would be talking where the initial referent for when he's saying you need to be born again is clearly somebody's physical birth, to then completely abandon that frame of reference when he's describing how you need to be born additionally to that. Personally, I think Jesus was actually a pretty good communicator. I don't think he was completely incompetent, and therefore I think he was able to follow the flow of a conversation. If he's going to have a conversation with someone who's confused about why you need to be born again after being born physically, I don't think he's going to depart from talking about the need to have been born twice. First physically and then spiritually. And he's not here mentioning water baptism at all.